J is for Justice podcast.
Jay, I like your podcast.
Roberta.
J. Hey, Roberters and Robertalinos. Welcome to J is for Justice. Do I sound too weird? Or do I sound like a radio show host? Or is it weird? I can turn it off. Oh, let me turn this off. We have a members only chat going on tonight. So welcome to chat, all of the members.
Roberta.
Ooh-wee, that will scare somebody.
Yeah. Ooh-wee. Yes, it's too weird. Is it too extreme? Hey, Mike Sanner.
Sweet dreams, my sexy empanada.
It's too weird. All right, let me turn it off. Let me get back to my normal self. Lori's like, it's weird. Well, let's see if you guys prefer that. I should sound normal now. I should sound fine. So I just wanted to try that out and see if there was, I don't know, it was kind of fuzzy when I tried it. So I don't know if it's CEO, you're super duper weird. You love it. Is it too much bass? Mike, maybe I'll email you because this has, not to get off topic, but to get off topic a little bit, it has bottom exciter, frequency on or off, compressor on or off, expander on or off, and then there's an input and an output on this. Yeah, it was fuzzy, and that's why I wasn't liking it. But I think if I perfect the settings, if I can get them precisely a little bit better, that it will sound pretty cool. Always learning, you guys. Always learning. Trying to make this more enjoyable for you guys. Audio, I think that you can have the shittiest video, but if the audio is good, I think that, people will listen. But if your audio sucks, it doesn't matter how good your picture is, how good your stream is. At least in my opinion. So, super duper. It's a bottom exciter. Yeah, there's a bottom and an exciter. Hey, Brat. Good to see you. Oh, who else do we have here? Olive Juice. Hi, Olive. Hello, Potato. Ooh, hey, Potato. Hey, Snow. Yeah, I'll keep trying it. Maybe Mike can help me with the settings. All right. So tonight I have quite the show for you guys, honestly. This is pretty deep. So where do we begin? Let's begin with Ashley Banfield. Let's start there. Because Ashley got fired from HLN during her stint of reporting on the Chris Watts case. And I have no idea if it's, related to that or not. But nonetheless, she did a lot of coverage. This I definitely do not remember seeing. And every time I go live, Bella wants to say hi. Do you guys hear her? She's saying hello. Start at the beginning. Yeah, that's always a good place to start, isn't it? She says hello to everyone. Okay, so this is Jeff Gold, a defense attorney who was a guest on Ashley Banfield. And this is what I saw that I don't remember seeing back in the day. And then we'll go from there. So let's take a gander at this. Hold on. I want to make sure you guys can hear that. You can't hear it. There's no sound. Bye, Brett. Be safe with whatever you're doing. Hello, Mr. Positive. How are y'all? Are you positive today? I hope. Who am I kidding? He's always positive, isn't he? The music in the background of that cracks me up. So yesterday when we were live and we watched the press conference of Rourke and company and the medical examiner got up, I should have played this. Can you guys not even hear the sound bites anymore? Okay, give me 2 seconds. Can you hear me still? Yes, thank God. Just point that microphone right at your chin.
If you'll please point that microphone right at your chin.
Okay, we're back in biz. All right, let's watch Jeff Gold with Ashley Banfield on Crime and Justice. This came out September 20th of 2018. So September 20th, keep that in mind.
If you'll please point that microphone right at your chin.
The Daybell chin. That is the judge in the Daybell case telling telling him to point that microphone right at his chin. Okay, let's listen to Jeff Gold on Ashley Banfield.
Get the investigation, but he could have an emotion to dismiss the case if he could prove the state was selectively leaking things to taint the jury. That's where it goes legally. This stuff about the investigation was over the top.
Well, that's listen, everything about
Sorry. Starting at the beginning is probably the best. Oh, Ashley.
Watts is all alone in a jail cell where he spent all day by himself, probably thinking about his wife Shanann, his little girls Bella and Cece, and his unborn baby boy Nico, who Chris Watts will never see again because police say Chris Watts murdered them all. And if solitary confinement under suicide watch isn't punishment enough, before Chris goes to trial, inmate number 360519 is getting an extra dose of denial from his very own judge. Because Chris has made multiple motions since slipping into that orange jumpsuit.
Now, I don't remember there being all these motions. I remember there being like one, maybe two, but let's keep listening. Interesting stuff. These motions were not published on the Colorado site that we were all going and getting our information from. They were never there. A reporter requested these motions and posted them on the internet, and that's the only reason that they're out there for our viewing pleasure, and I found them. So let's listen to more of this, because the mainstream media definitely was not reporting this stuff. The mainstream media, if you remember, and we've talked about it, was reporting that Chris Watts sat in the interrogation room and stated that he killed all three and then said where he dumped them. But we know he didn't do that because we sat there and we heard him say otherwise, right? And then we heard last night, Rourke did the press conference and a reporter asked last night, has he changed his story or has he said anything else since then? And he said no. So the media, the mainstream media there in Denver, got leaked info that he confessed to everything. So that brings us to these motions, I imagine, being filed.
Trying to keep certain details from getting out. And he is not exactly getting his way. But Chris isn't the only one filing the motions because, curiously enough, prosecution just filed a motion of their own. And hot off the press, they're asking that the autopsy report that we've all been waiting on stay private all the way up until this case goes to trial. The autopsy report that could hold all of the answers as to how these girls were killed and whether it was Chris Watts who did all the killing. Joining me now, crime journalist Pat Lalama. Pat, this was a real surprise to see the prosecution looking to make sure the autopsies didn't go public, and not just now, and not just for a few weeks, all the way until trial. Why'd they do this?
Well, my guess is in this case that they feel that the information about the results of those autopsies is so pertinent and critical to getting a conviction in their case. They don't want to take any chances. And, you know, as an observer and as a media person, we'd like to know. As an observer, I can understand why.
But what about the notion of interviewing witnesses? Does it give you an idea that maybe they aren't as far along as we thought they might be?
No, I read it perhaps more the opposite. It said they were afraid that the release of the information could taint witnesses who have not yet been interviewed and, of course, a potential jury pool.
This is what struck out at me. Look at this lady. I always find the best freeze frames. The prosecution did not want the 3 autopsies released and they said due to witnesses who have yet to be interviewed. So what difference would it make? Like, what difference would cause of death make in any other witnesses other than Chris Watts if he's the lone killer? You know, it's like a case of, and I'm no expert and you guys know that, but it's like a case of where they, how do I want to word it? I don't know. Let's keep listening and let me form my thoughts. I'll have something astounding, I promise.
There are people, they are setting their sights on potential witnesses that they haven't spoken to. And
okay, yeah. So that jogged my memory. So let's say there's a witness that they think may have been involved. They're not going to want like that witness to know the cause of death or, you know, whatever. They're going to want that to be private so that this person doesn't know exactly what they know. So how would this hurt further witness interviews at this juncture? I hope that made sense.
I think in fairness to their investigation, they have every right to cross the T's, dot the I's, and keep it shut at this point.
Jeffrey Gold, you're a defense attorney. Does this sound to you like they are so worried about what the details are in that autopsy that they absolutely can't have people out there that they still have to witness knowing what they know?
Well, I mean, maybe they have to give it to the defense pretty soon, you know.
They haven't yet.
But they need to when they give discovery. So there may be a short window of people that they do need to interview. I think it's more likely than the taint of the jury because they haven't made a motion, you know, as to the defense. Because when the defense gets...
We know it wasn't about the jury because they never intended to go to trial. They were talking plea deal the end of August. So we know it definitely wasn't to taint the jury. So what witnesses did they still have to interview on September 20th, 2018 that they hadn't interviewed, that they didn't want the cause of death to get out? Because there was a big thing, strangle versus smothering. And it's still unclear. It's still unclear.
They can do what they want with it unless there is such a motion.
They're absolutely saying in writing that releasing this would, quote, result in tainting witnesses that have not yet been interviewed. Jeffrey, what kind of witnesses would be tainted by how these people died, other than Chris himself?
Well, I mean, you know, we don't know. We don't know what's in that autopsy report. If we knew what was in there, we might guess the witnesses. But I do agree with what Pat said. They may not be as far along in this investigation as we thought.
Pat, the other issue, and we just brought this out from one of the motions last week, and that was that the prosecutors wanted cheek swabs, the prosecutors wanted handprints and fingerprints, and the prosecutors wanted photographs of that being done to the hands. I mean, they wanted it so airtight that even the fingerprints and the palm prints had to be photographed while being actually executed. And those photographs, they called them Polaroids, you know, hearkening back to the day where they probably were Polaroids. They wanted them clipped to the file as the file was being completed right there in front, so there'd be no chain of custody issues. How did Chris Watts respond to that?
Well, I happen to have it right here. According to Chris Watts, now I can't wait to hear the attorneys dissect this one. He cites the Fourth Amendment search and seizure, and he says there's no probable cause. There's no reason why he should have to do this. He hasn't seen a page of discovery, and therefore he says he doesn't have to do this.
That's crazy because, as I recall the Fourth Amendment, you know, from the top of my head, it's unreasonable search and seizure.
Okay, so this, I didn't realize. So if we look at all these motions they're talking about that were filed on Chris Watts' behalf, his lawyers were trying. I mean, from what I can see, that they were filing these motions saying he wants this, he wants that, he's not going to do this, he's not going to do that. He wants media coverage limited because they're leaking false info. There was a lot going on. So how in the hell did they get him to agree to a plea deal? Because it sounds to me like his lawyers were doing the right things. Now, I don't know what they were doing behind the scenes, but they were filing these motions and we were not seeing them for the most part. Because I never heard this reported anywhere else but on Ashley, and that lady has them in her hand. So let's keep listening.
Right. What is unreasonable about a guy who's wanted for trial on 3 different murder charges, 2 murder one case for position of trust, and a battery of other charges, 9 felony counts against this guy? Jeffrey Gold, jump in here. You're the lawyer. Unreasonable search and seizure, I understand. But how unreasonable is it to ask a guy who's in solitary on murder charges for his palm prints, his fingerprints, and his cheek swab?
These exemplars are all routine. All the swabs are routine. There's no Fifth Amendment right. They really don't need much at all. They have enough to ask for it. So it's going to be...
Well, what is this? Is this a defense attorney trying to make hay and make it difficult and make it expensive for a prosecutor?
Well, I don't know about expensive, just to object. That's all. To object. They're not going to win. They're going to get the swabs. They're going to get any kind of exemplars they want in this situation. It would be different if there was no probable cause for the offense, but obviously there is.
Yeah. Kyle Peltz, you're sitting beside Jeffrey Gold, and Kyle has been working on this case. You're a crime and justice producer, but honestly, you're a document demon.
Okay, so this guy is who we have to thank for getting all of these motions that they weren't putting on the Colorado court website. This man right here.
I have not seen...
She called him a document demon. If there is a document demon out there that would like to help Jays for Justice, let me know. We would love to have a document demon.
somebody comb through the documents.
I mean, we do have document demons, but this dude is like a document demon.
You have in this case. And in fact, you have been instrumental in getting many of them actually posted from the requests and the conversations you've had with the court, which means you've had to read them very fast. And there's been sort of a snowstorm of them lately. Something that you noticed about the media interest in the case. Give me a bit of a feel for what you're seeing in terms of this fight that Chris has been having to shut down leaks.
That's right. We knew Chris wasn't happy about some of the information coming out in the media. He's thinking someone in law enforcement was leaking this information, and he actually asked the judge to order a massive investigation into who was doing this. And today, the court just released a handful more documents where the judge slapped down that request and said, no, we're not launching an investigation.
You know, I think you were either on the set or really close by when we broke the news about his conditions.
Did you hear that? He asked for the government to investigate the government. His lawyers were asking on his behalf for a full investigation into the DA, everyone. I never knew this, but I've got the motion. And we're going to go through it when this is done.
Solitary, under suicide watch. He has no reading material in his.
Yeah, so here's a little bit about now what was going on with Chris while they're rejecting every single motion that his lawyers filed. He's in solitary. They're reporting that he's depressed. Let's listen.
Suicide watch. He has no reading material in his cell, but he is allowed to look at a communal newspaper or a couple of newspapers out in the hour out room. That's the room where you get to spend your 1 hour out of your 24 out in another room. And on the table, there are some newspapers. So Chris Watts has access to news in that respect. He doesn't have access to television at all. But he seems to know, or at least his attorney seems to know exactly what's been leaked. And he put it down on paper. He actually listed what he's angry with.
He did. You would think that Hour Out room that he has access to maybe subscribes to People magazine, because People magazine comes up frequently in his documents. He's not happy with some of the information that they're getting, apparently from law enforcement
He's
sources.
actually quoting them, isn't he?
He quotes quite a few People magazine issues here.
Have you guys ever heard this before? I'm doing a poll because I thought I had heard pretty much everything. I never heard this shit. I have never heard this shit. You're 50-50. Look at that. 50-50 on whether he was snowballed, which what I mean by snowballed is, was he even given a fair shot? You know? What was I going to poll you guys on? I can't even remember. If you remember this shiz. Do you recall these important motions being filed? Because I don't. Casey!
Isn't happy hour anytime?
That's for you, Cal. I don't remember these, but do you remember this show? You probably remember watching this episode. You probably saw everything.
I remember one of the first things that People magazine came out with was that he showed no emotion while he was being booked. And he cited that.
He cited that. I think that was one of the first things he cited. There was another People article, and I'm reading here because People's broken a lot of news and Chris Watts isn't happy about it, where a source apparently says there's no evidence Shanann killed the kids. And People magazine even had some sources saying there's evidence Chris had been thinking about this for some time, down to the evidence found in Chris's truck.
So last week we broke that story. We didn't break the story. We told what had been broken on that story. Again, from People magazine, they have an impeccable source, it seems, about the evidence from the truck. And he cites the evidence. What did he say exactly?
I wonder who their impeccable source was on the inside. We should do a poll on that.
Article that cites the evidence in the truck. Chris puts that in one of his documents. And he also mentions the evidence found in the bedding, clothes, computers, and phones, the text messages and search histories. Him and his defense team aren't happy with this information getting out there.
They listed it all out in their motions to.
They mentioned that whole document.
And what did the judge ultimately say about this demand from Chris Watts to investigate the entire defense? I mean, from every police department that touched the case to the prosecutor's office to the sheriff's department to the jailers. What was the judge's response to Mr. Christopher Watts?
Said it's not happening. That's not what prosecutors do.
To hell with you, is what he said. To hell with you. We're not doing it. We're not doing your massive government investigation that you've asked for. So that's it. That's the end of that.
Well, Chris is fighting back. He's asking the judge now to reconsider that.
Did you guys know this? I had no idea that this happened. So he's asking for this thorough investigation. He was shot down. And then he asked again. And obviously was shot down again.
Word on if the judge has ruled on that yet, though.
Okay, so one of the big questions I would have is that there's been a lot of news, including on this program, broken about his sexual predilections prior to these alleged murders, right? Because what are the things you look for when there's a wife and children murdered and it's out of the blue and it's uncharacteristic? You wonder about the affairs. Well, some of the news broke about the affair at work that was in the affidavit, and then the other affairs that came from this program and from People magazine. Did he complain about those?
No, and that's the one thing that an article does not mention that Chris cites in his court documents. None of these People articles, none of these other local news articles that Chris takes issue with mention anything about extramarital affairs other than the one police say was going on with someone at work.
Yeah, so goes without saying that some of the most lurid parts of the investigation so far have been that there were male and female lovers and not just one or two, that there were many, but not. And I said you were the document demon because I know you went over every inch of these documents. You went over every inch of the complaints that Chris Watts had to the court about the coverage, about the media coverage, ours included. Not one mention about the men and women he's been seeing.
Pretty much every People article that came out, Chris Watts is then telling the judge, hey, look, another leak, another leak. I mean, almost as he's reading it real time. But in the course of all of these articles coming out, there was an article by People magazine mentioning relationships with both men and women, and Chris Watts does not mention that article at all.
There was a man on this program who alleged to have a 10-month affair with him as well, and he didn't have any complaints about that. Not one mention in all those documents.
Maybe, I don't think he took that serious. From what I understand, he has said who is this? Who is that guy? Like, I don't know. Unless there definitely is two Chris's, and I don't see it. I don't see it at all. But this is very interesting nonetheless.
Has he been given discovery? Because that's a big part of this.
Well, as of 2 weeks ago, his defense team says they haven't seen a single page of discovery.
It is September 20th when this was being aired. His defense has not seen a single page of discovery. Over a month. Over a month. They were already talking plea deals. So Rourke expects us to believe that the defense came to him with a fucking plea deal before they even had one page of discovery. Okay. More like they didn't give the discovery and the prosecution was already going for a plea deal. Think it's the other way around? I do.
Wow. Not a single. Jeff, is that weird?
No,
We're a month into this.
No, they have some more time to do that. He's not being
not a single page.
He's not being arraigned yet.
Yeah,
so they have time to do that. I would just want to mention on the reason why it's about the government, the state in this case, is because he may have a motion. Forget about the investigation. He'll never get the investigation, but he can have an motion to dismiss the case if he could prove the state was selectively leaking things to taint the jury. That's where it goes legally.
Did you hear that? Did you fucking hear that? Do you think that's part of this rush to plea deal, to sentencing done within 3 months? You guys, a month and a half from this discussion, he was sentenced and done. A month and a half from this. And his lawyers had nothing yet. Nothing. How could his lawyers have even gone through what they were given in a month and a half in order to determine that a plea deal is the best route to go? How does that make sense? So they get 1,960 or 1,920 pages, whatever it is. Kelly, I know you know. They get that much paperwork after September the 20th, and they've already been able to decipher through it all, discuss it with their client, yada, 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 in a month and a half's time. And they had enough knowledge at that point to tell him, this is your best interest. Because what? They've shot everything down and you don't stand a fucking chance. That's what I mean by snowballed. And I don't care if it's Chris Watts or Chris Farley. I don't care who it is. That's not right. How is that even humanly possible in the law world to go through 2,000 pages in a month's time and already have a plea deal you agree to, worked up, sentenced, done, shipped off to Wisconsin? Do you think that it was part of his deal to be shipped off to a better prison in Wisconsin and not have to stay in Colorado? And maybe if he opens his trap, he's been threatened that he'll go back to Colorado, where he has vocally said on numerous occasions he never wants to go. So are they strong arming him, or did they strong arm him to zip the lip and give that second confession? I don't know, but I didn't know all of this either. So yikes, Ashley, literally. Oh, we've got Ashley too. It's perfect.
Ashley, nobody said yikes, he hasn't come home, Ashley.
About the government, the state in this case, is because he may have a motion. Forget about the investigation. He'll never get the investigation, but he can have an emotion to dismiss the case if he could prove the state was selectively leaking things to taint the jury. That's where it goes legally. This stuff about the investigation was over the top.
Well, that's, listen, everything about this case is over the top. And I think it's because nothing about this case makes sense.
You hear her say it. You hear her say it. And you wonder why she got fired. I'm not saying it was this, but I mean, she is very outspoken with her questioning.
You don't typically have an accused family annihilator with a background like Chris Watts, with a wife like Chris Watts, with children like Chris Watts, with Facebook pages like Chris Watts. A guy like this who everybody, I mean, literally everyone whom we've contacted has said this was not the guy. And who do you think might know him best? Who do you think might know the guy before this news broke, other than the dead people? It might be the people who lived with him. It might be his roommate. It might be the man who knew Chris when. And after the break, he's going to speak with us. I want to throw Jeff Gold in.
Okay, so I don't know. I don't think they play the roommate. But who would know him better than someone who lived with him? They never even talked to his parents. And I'm not talking about the media, but I'm talking about the investigation. But let's listen a little more to Jeff Gold, because this is obviously from Jeff Gold's channel. He's a legal analyst, so this is probably spliced for his benefit.
For a second, what probable cause does somebody need to shut down a site like that home when 3 people are missing? Everything is locked up tight from the inside, okay? There's no breach, there's nothing. But 3 people are missing, including 2 children, and bed sheets are all askew, and a guy's on the porch acting weird. What kind of probable cause do you need to say, Mr. Watts, you can't stay here tonight, it's a crime scene?
He does not know.
It probably wasn't at the time, because people go missing, women go missing, and they take their kids. They leave. So, you have to have a little bit more, which I think...
Okay, he just said what the Watts said from the beginning that they thought happened. And nobody attack this guy because of who he is. He's a legal analyst. He's a lawyer. But this is the same thing they've been saying. They thought she just took off. They didn't know why. They knew they were going through a separation. There was, not marital bliss. And they thought maybe she took off, that they got in a fight and she took off. Very reasonable.
They had by the next day. So I'm not going to fault the police yet for it, because that's what happens. People leave.
He told two different stories to the officers that arrived. One, he said he got up at 4. The other one, he was up at 5.
I get you, but I don't know.
One he was up at 4, one he was up at 5. If she only knew those were minor discrepancies, and here we are 4 years later. That's the least of our worries, is whether he woke up at 4 or 5. That's the least of the questions that haven't been answered.
JB, we have to stand down.
Stand down, Shell. Thank you, Shell. We needed a little bit of fuel tonight. Thank you so much. Greatly, greatly appreciated.
Can fault the police quite yet, because people leave.
I don't mean it's a fault. All I say is, what probable cause do you need to say, Mr. Watts, we're going to find your family. But in the meantime, any criminal who came in here and stole them, we want to protect the scene.
You need probable cause of crime committed, that somebody was kidnapped or killed or assaulted or
her
something.
Her phone, her keys, her medicine, her car seats, her car, everything is locked up in that house.
Right. I think that first night you have to give them the benefit of the doubt.
Could have been the most critical night for evidence.
You just don't know.
There are so many things that are mystifying about this story, and there are so many missing pieces of this puzzle, and perhaps that is why it is so mystifying, because we're waiting for those pieces to get filled in. But we're starting.
And they never do. They never do. They never will, I don't think.
To make some guesses as to what might be those missing pieces, and the bed sheets are a big part of the story. Jeffrey Gold, I want you to come back into this story along with Art Roderick. When the police showed up on Monday morning, ostensibly there's a missing persons case. They did a check of the house. And actually, Kyle Peltz, I know you've got the documents in front of you. The warrantless affidavit says they found bed sheets clumped up on the bedroom floor that very morning, about noon or a little bit after noon. Bed sheets from the master bed clumped up, correct?
Right.
But they didn't say what sheets.
Right. We know 2 officers arrived that day for the welfare check. When they get there, they find the master bedroom bed stripped of its bedding on the floor.
Right.
Now, they do say they checked that bedding and found no signs of foul play.
But they didn't count the pieces of the bedding, did they?
It's not in the document,
okay.
no.
So what's interesting is later.
Okay, wait. Let's listen to that part again.
On the floor.
Right.
Now, they do say they checked that bedding and found no signs.
Or a little bit after noon. Bed sheets from the master bed clumped up, correct?
Right.
But they didn't say what sheets.
Right. We know 2 officers arrived that day for the welfare check. When they get there, they find the master bedroom bed stripped of its bedding on the floor.
Right.
Now, they do say they checked that bedding and found no signs of foul play.
But they didn't count the pieces of the bedding, did they?
It's not in the document,
okay.
no.
So what's interesting is later in the document, Jeffrey, it says they eventually, and they don't say when, but they eventually find 3 pieces of bedding in the kitchen trash, 2 pillowcases and a top sheet. It appears there's no fitted sheet, but we do know that a matching sheet to that set is found out in the oil field. So is it wrong to extrapolate here to say, since they didn't give us this timeline of when those 2 sets of sheets are found, that perhaps if he's guilty, he may have used the fitted sheet from the master bed to wrap one of the bodies, I doubt all 3, for burial, because one body, Shenan's, was found in the shallow grave. And then eventually, once the police left and he was able to stay in that house on Monday night, he realized, damn it, I have an incomplete set of sheets, and I know that the completed set is out on that field. I'm in big trouble if they ever find that sheet out in the field and they find these sheets in my house. I think I'll put them in the kitchen trash and eventually get rid of them.
I mean, that's very logical. And if a prosecutor never knows for sure, it's a great theory for him to tell a jury because it makes sense. What you've decided here makes a lot of sense.
Yikes. You hear that? Makes a lot of sense. All those questions May, welcome to Roberta.
Roberta.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for joining and being part of the fam. We are happy to have you. All right. So what are you guys thinking? I don't recall this shiz. It looks like a lot of you guys do not either. But let's go ahead and end this poll so I can see where we stand. Roberters. Okay. May, you're a Roberter now.
Roberta.
Chris and Roberta.
I think so too, Susan Gee. It's really sad, but she was very outspoken. You know. Are the bots working tonight, you guys? I'm hoping they are. Because we've been without. But thank you, mods, for putting the links up in chat as well. So that was Jeff Gold again on Ashley Banfield's show. It was Crime and Justice. And that was on HLN. And that was back in her heyday. So let's also... Oh, no. I hate when it locks you out because you didn't pay. Like, you've reached your limit. That's not good. All right, so let's take a look at this article real quick. Chris Watts' attorneys allege prosecutors leaked information to the media. Now, this was on the Denver channel, so I stand corrected. They did report it on September 12th and 13th. And it says, attorneys for the Frederick man charged with murdering his family are accusing prosecutors and police of leaking information about the case to the media. According to court documents, Chris Watts' attorneys... Oh, we have a Roberta! Kelly! Welcome, Kel. Hang on. I know when that hotline bling. Hello, Tracy. Thank you so much, Kelly, for joining. Welcome to the fam.
A four-way, if you will.
According to court documents, Chris Watts' attorneys asked the court to open an investigation into whether information was illegally provided to the press. In a court filing obtained by Denver 7, Watts' attorneys filed a motion to have the court order a special commission to investigate their claims. However, prosecutors have dismissed the claim and assert the publicly filed court documents have been the source for most of the information the media has reported on. Prosecutors further argue that granting the defense's motion would be unreasonable, considering the court lacks the staff and funding to conduct an investigation. Right back to money, right? We're talking about a guy's life. Weld County District Attorney's Office notes that they are taking measures to limit information from being released, but say media attention in the case will continue. The damage was done. The damage was already done. Hi, Midge. The damage was done. They already told the public that he confessed to everything. Prosecutors are asking Watts to provide the district attorney's office and police with buccal swabs, finger and palm prints, and photographs of Watts' hands. Watts was formally charged with killing his wife, Shanann Watts, their two daughters, Bella and Celeste, back in August. See, and it doesn't say, that he confessed to all of them in this article. So now, another little interesting point. Let's open up one of these documents here, and then we're going to come back to this guy. Let's go to... I have all these motions. There's like 6 of them.
JD, we have to stand down.
Pip Billy. Thank you. Stand down, baby. Thank you for the extra fuel. Hey, Sandals. And hi, Mac. Okay. Let me see what motion I want to show you guys first. Oh, Lori Staggs coming in hot. Thank you, Lori. She says, thank you, Jay, for another great show. Thank you, honey, for watching. If I didn't have you guys watching, I wouldn't have a show. So thank you.
JD,
You have to stand down. Oh, I know. Okay, so we went over these documents yesterday. I can't find the one. We went over it last night, I believe. And this man, interestingly enough, right here, this DNA expert you see, that's him and his wife. His name is Richard. I'm going to try to say this correctly. Eichelboom. Richard Eichelboom. He testified in JonBenet Ramsey. He's testified and worked on Casey Anthony. Not testified in John, but he worked on JonBenet Ramsey case in some capacity. He's done some high profile DNA cases. This is the man who Chris Watts public defenders said there would be traces of DNA even though the girls were in oil. So you have this DNA expert that has testified in these high profile cases standing behind getting these girls' necks swabbed. I understand now why they didn't do it if they were hiding something. Because they didn't want this guy up on the stand for the defense. Did they? I don't think so. But let me tell you a little bit about Richard and his wife. They are independent forensic investigators. And his reputation has been called into question. And he's here like defending his reputation in this news article. And he states it's because these prosecutors just straight up, they take their claims and their narrative and make it not what it was. And he says they don't like us because of that. Hi, Rose Petal. All right, so let's take a look and let's listen to the Eichelbooms.
Hall of Fame.
After this short advertisement. And if you haven't liked this video, go ahead and take the opportunity to do so now. I'll give you a minute to go like it. This is a potato intermission.
Ooh-wee, that will scare somebody.
Okay. Bye, Jennifer. All right, maybe we can watch it now. Hopefully you guys all liked the video. Why aren't you playing, mofo? Wow. I have to skip the video, eh?
Hall of Fame
oh, we've got another advertisement. Let's see if it starts after this one.
Unneeded opioid medication. Defensive strategy is to remove the risk.
Weird, like, went away. It's gone. So it's not on here anymore. But this is from 2016, CBS Colorado. A man who has testified in several high-profile criminal trials around the country as a DNA expert has been discredited in a Denver trial. Richard Eichenboom says it's almost expected that his qualifications would be called into question by attorneys, but he calls what happened on the stand in Denver ludicrous. What happens here is not truth finding. They just want to find something to throw mud at you. Eichenboom and his wife Selma are defending their reputation after questions from a lawyer from the Denver District Attorney's Office during a trial led to him being discredited by the judge. Good night, Potato. I hope you have a great day tomorrow. He was offered as a DNA expert and admitted in the first round of questioning from my prosecutors that he hadn't done this work.
Sweet dreams, my sexy empanada.
He was offered as a DNA expert and admitted in the first round of questioning from my prosecutors that he hadn't done this work. Morrissey and Eichenboom exaggerated his qualification in the Netherlands, where he's from, and that when he opened a lab in Colorado, he trained himself. So here he says, this Morrissey guy, he's about willing to say anything for $1, and that's what I find offensive about him. But Eichenboom says it's quite the opposite, and that he meets all the requirements. That includes a certificate of accreditation from the American Society of Crime Laboratory Directors and the equivalent board in Holland. Eichenboom says the DA's office isn't telling the whole story, and he believes it's more about just one single case where he was discredited. And Eichenboom says this is happening because we can expose them in miscarriages of justice. And the reporter said, what do you mean expose them? And Eichenboom said, well, if they made a mistake in the case and we redo the DNA, like with Timothy Masters and these other cases, then it could happen that we find a mistake. The Eichenbooms say they have worked on the John Benet Ramsey case and are still involved in it. According to them, their findings helped eliminate the Ramsey parents as suspects in the case. Interesting, right? So this is the same man who wanted to, who the defense was getting advice from on the DNA remaining on the girls in the oil tanks. So I thought that was extremely interesting, really. Because I think if this would have gone to trial, this would have been a really good trial. It would have been really interesting, and I think quite shocking, to see what the outcome of this trial would have been. Think about it. So let's take a look at some of these motions that Christopher Watt's attorneys filed on his behalf. We're going to go through them one by one. Why did that shrink? That's what she asked. Okay. Here is our first motion. Oh, way.
Woo-wee, that will scare somebody.
All right, which one do I have pulled up? I have 6 of them. Okay. It must be not this one. Negative, negative, negative. This is the jail visit one. Okay. So this was filed. Where is the date on this one? September 24th. So this is after the Ashley Banfield episode, like right around the same time. And this is Order C-15 regarding defendant's motion for protective order prohibiting Weld County Sheriff's Office from disclosing information about confidential jail visits. So this one was new to me. I don't know who was visiting Chris because we were told he was in solitary. So who did they have Who did Weld County have visiting? I mean, who was visiting him? That Chris would want that hidden. Unless I'm totally picking this up wrong. So it was denied, but it said that they wanted the sheriff's office to prevent the sheriff's office from disclosing any information about visits the defendant receives at the Weld County Jail. And the request was denied. I don't understand why he wanted that gone, but all right, let's move on. I'm just going to briefly go through these, and I will post them in the Facebook group. J is for Justice podcast. If you go to Facebook, actually, the mods can probably put the link in. I will post all of these motions. This is another motion. This is the K and O. Okay. Let me get that one up. This is Order C-16 granting people's motions K and O for non-testimonial identification procedure pursuant to Colorado Rules of Criminal Procedure Rule 16, The court has considered the people's motions, the defendant's responses, and the people's reply. So this is the judgment. The people seek the collection of non-testimonial identification from the defendant, namely 1, buccal swabs, 2, digital photographs of both right and left hands, 3, major case finger, palm footprints, and 4, a clear and visible Polaroid photograph. And that's what Ashley Banfield was talking about. They wanted to follow this every step of the way, so there was no chain of custody problems with it changing hands. So this court has previously made a probable cause determination based on an affidavit in support of a warrantless arrest for the crimes contained in the criminal information. Once judicial proceedings against the defendant have been initiated, a prosecution request for non-testimonial identification evidence is governed by blah, blah, blah. And they state this case. And then they, talk about the non-testimonial identification, blah, 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 blah. So in other words, they're saying, too bad, you're going to give all these things up. But let's look at, they're going to cite all these cases. Now let's look down here. The prosecution asserts that during the course of this criminal investigation, numerous items of evidence have been collected and are in the process of being sent to the Colorado Bureau of Investigation for forensic testing. Additionally, upon receiving these items of evidence, the CBI developed possible bare foot impressions using their normal Latin print process for non-porous items. According to the prosecution, these impressions were developed from a bag which was collected at the scene where the named victims' bodies were located. That's where that information was located in this order. After considering the affidavit in support of warrantless arrest, the people's motions, and the defendant's objections, this court concludes that the benefit to the people and potentially to defendant of complete and accurate forensic testing and analysis outweighs the minimal intrusion on defendant by submitting to the requested non-testimonial identification procedure. Based on the totality of the circumstances, the collection of the requested non-testimonial evidence is justified. So why wasn't it justified when Chris Watts asked for the girls' necks to be swabbed? Why was that not justified? Probable cause exists for the collection of the requested items. The collection of this non-testimonial evidence will not constitute a violation of the defendant's constitutional rights. So they give the Frederick Police Department and the DA authorization to collect these things. And they had to take pictures, and they did footprints, ink prints, they did foot casts, they did full hand, palm, fingers, because they found a print on a bag and they wanted comparables, but we never got the results of the comparison. Because lo and behold, this all ended with a plea deal a month and a half after Chris Watts' attorneys received 2,000 pages of discovery. It seems ludicrous, doesn't it? So let's look at this one for a sec. Okay, so this one is dated October 1st. Check this out. The people are in receipt of the autopsy reports of Shanann, Bella, and Celeste Watts. The people have provided said documentation to the defendant via the discovery process. Dated this first day of October 2018. They just gave the defense the autopsy reports on October 1st. Chris Watts was sentenced November 6th. Sentenced a month after receiving the autopsy. Nope, Mike Sanner, actually the Watts family tried and they were shot down. All right. Now what is this one? Oh, that's the jail visits. Okay, here's Mr. Watts' objection to the media motion that I was telling you guys about. Okay, so here we go. I agree, Kelly. I really do. Okay. And there may be a reason why he won't. He may have been threatened that he'll go back to Colorado. I don't know what the deal is with this. But it's messed up. I do know that. This is dated November the 13th. And this is for Mr. Watts' objection to requests for expanded media for November 6th and 7th. Christopher Watts, through his attorneys, hereby objects to the request for expanded media coverage filed on November 6th and 7th, 2018. In support of this objection, Mr. Watts states, various members of the media file requests for expanded media coverage of the sentencing, in this case scheduled for November 19th. Okay, so I was wrong. November 19th he was sentenced. So the 6th and 7th must have been the initial hearing, the whatever you call it. I don't know. So the actual sentencing was the 19th. This was the probable cause hearing. And then they announced it, and then they came back and sentenced a few weeks later. The requests do not mention still photography, but rather variously request audio and visual recording coverage. Through this motion, Mr. Watts objects to such audio and visual recording. Several pleadings have already laid out the standards by which this court should be guided. Counsel for Mr. Watts is concerned that expanded media coverage would create, quote, adverse effects that would be greater than those caused by traditional media coverage. Counsel is also concerned that the court allowing such coverage would undermine the dignity of the court. This case has been the subject of extensive local, state, and nationwide coverage. It is clear that traditional reporting is fully able to adequately convey the important facts of this case to the public. Counsel is aware that the witnesses may be called to give emotional and difficult testimony and statements concerning the sentence in the case. Counsel fears that the existence of video and or audio from the courtroom may cause the witnesses additional undue stress and fear. It is also clear that Mr. Watts has drawn substantial public outrage. Broadcasting video from the courtroom can only serve to increase safety risks of those involved in the case, including Mr. Watts. Counsel acknowledges the right of the media to report what happens in this sentencing hearing. Counsel is not objecting to media access. Counsel is simply asking the court not to expand the rights of the media in this particular case for this particularly sensitive hearing. Mr. Watts asked this court to consider this motion as a response to all further requests for expanded media coverage unless a subsequent pleading is filed. Wherefore, Mr. Watts objects to the request for expanded media coverage. So let's see how the court responded to Mr. Watts' request. That would be a denial. That would be a big fat no, Mr. Watts. I don't think he ever got one yes. I don't think he ever got one yes. But, you know, it does, for all intents and purposes, sound to me like his lawyers actually tried, but their hands were tied for some reason. You know it? Crazy. So I'm not gonna go any further with that right now. But I did want to show you guys some things as we were talking about Chris's neck the other day. And I want to talk about this because I changed it. I used some different filters and some different, contrast and things like that. Hey, Krug's wifey. I love it. Cute. Mr. Krug's is a lucky man to have Krug's. To have Sammy Krug's. All right, where is the letter to the court? Here it is. All right. And this letter, it is redacted of who wrote it, but this was written November the 12th to Judge Kopkow. And yes, I said Kopkow.
God almighty.
In the name of Jesus, Father God, Lord.
And this is how I feel about D.A. Rourke.
I don't want to see you again for the rest of my whole life.
Oh, why did I pull up this letter? I didn't want to go over that right now. Hold on. We are going to go over that, but not right now. Okay, so let me pull up the original photo. This would be the orig. Okay. This is with no filter. This is just the picture. Okay, I'm going to make it small. You can see. Make it big. I thought maybe it was a hickey as well. But, all right, let's keep that one there. This kind of made me sick to my tummy last night, you guys, so I'm just warning you. We're going to go with a little more contrast. Oops. What just happened? Dude, what just happened? That was weird. Where'd the picture go? Why'd this move? Everything's moving. Wed. Let's try that again. This is a little more contrast. Okay. So here, I'll make it bigger and I'll make it smaller. You can definitely see the shape of it a lot better here, right? I don't think this is any kind of a sting, honestly. So let's go to a little more. This is a lot more contrast filter going on because, you know, you can see here he doesn't have bruising, but it looks bruised. So don't look at that shiz. Just look at the shape of the mark on the neck. Okay, I'm going to make it bigger. I know, look at his whiskers. Isn't that weird? You can see every pore. But see the shape? Looks like a half circle. It looks like a bite mark from a child to me. And honestly, it made me a little sick to my tummy to even say that, but it clearly, it does to me. So let's look at the black and white. I also put it in black and white with some contrast. Where'd you go? Where did you go? Where did you go, my lovely? I moved my own camera. Look, I'm over here in the middle now. Okay, so there it is in black and white. What do you guys think? It looks like teeth marks. At first, I thought it was a hickey. I really did. Let me get rid of his icky beard. Let's shrink these down and get rid of the beard. It looks gross when you see all the pores. Let's just make the mark there and let's line them up. Why would that be there? Because Bella fought. We know from the discovery that Bella fought back. And I just can't help but think that this is possibly her bite mark. And it makes me sick to say that, but could it be? But, you know, it looks too small almost to be an adult. And if you look at this one here, the one that's bigger right now, see on the left, which would be your left side. I know you can't see my pointer, but see how it's deeper? There's that deeper red. And then it goes like up. I wish I had a pointer, but I don't. You know, there's like a deeper red on the left-hand side. It's almost like because that was more pressure. If it is a bite mark, like if you bite down on something, you know, if you bite harder on one side, then, you know, you're going to have more pressure on that side. And then the front, if you see the top part, welcome, Erica. Thank you for joining. If you look at the very top where the hump would be right here, that would be your front teeth, and you wouldn't have as much pressure because your molars would bite down harder. And that looks like the size of molars to me. But I'm no fucking expert. I'm just showing you what I came across, and, you know, make of it what you will. But I certainly think that it looks more like a bite mark than a bee sting. I just do. And This is the only injury or the only mark that Chris had on his entire body. So I don't know if it's small enough to be a kid's or if this could be an adult's. I don't know if you'd see. I don't know. I don't know if you'd see the ridges. That's why I don't know. I'm not an expert. But I'm just, raising some questions. I don't know. She does not know. But she does know that does not look like a bug bite. I don't think it does. We may never know what the hell it is. It may be nothing. But I do think it's very similar to what you would see with a little bite mark. It could have been rough. CEO, I have no doubt that it could have been her. Biting, pulling, analing. She sounds like she did it all. Just saying.
These nuts.
These are just things that I think back then we really didn't focus on because there was so much else to focus on. We had, oh God, you ever drink pop and it hurts? They never said where the marks came from. They just said they were marks. I don't know. Troy and Chris getting nasty, doing the nasties. Doing the butt. Remember that song? Doing the butt. Sexy, sexy. My sexy empanada.
Sweet dreams, my sexy empanada.
Deep. Yuck. So anyway, just a little food for thought. Maybe nothing, but I noticed it. That would be his left side, I believe. Because when he was standing on the porch, his left. Definitely his left. Chuck Marie. Welcome, Chuck. Actually, I have a sound bite for you, Chuck. Thank you for joining the family. It's good to have you. Get it, Chuck Brown? Or maybe you think I sound like that when I go live. I don't know. One of the two. Okay, so let me make sure I've got all that down and I've covered everything I wanted to cover. Okay, now we're going to go over this letter. And this is going to be our last part of tonight's show. And I hope you guys have enjoyed this so far because I think, it's interesting. And especially if you've never seen this stuff before, then it's really, really interesting. So I hope I've taught you something tonight, but let's take a look at the letter to Judge Kopkow. Kopkow, who turned down every motion that Chris Watts put forth. Every last one. All right, let me make this so I can read the dang thing. Okay. Judge Kopkow. And again, this was on November the 13th, 2018. I am writing to you on behalf of Cindy Watts, the mother of Christopher Watts. Since the time of Chris's arrest, his entire family has been denied contact with him. They attempted to contact him by phone, by email, and in person. And they were denied by the public defender's office each time. The night before the hearing, they were allowed to visit for 30 minutes each. Father, mother, and sister. Which is the first contact they've had since his arrest. During the meeting, his mother attempted to ask him if this is what he really wanted, a plea deal, and was told, quote, Do not ask him that, or we will shut this shit down now. By the attorney present. They have felt threatened and bullied when all they want to do is see their son and make sure this is his plea, since that is not what his original confession was. The family feels that Chris has been coerced into making this confession. He has been isolated the entire 3 months and had contact with no one except the attorneys and his jailers. The family feels he has been told by the public defender that he has no other options than to take this plea and has therefore accepted his fate. However, they don't actually know the facts, since they are not allowed to speak to Chris. And you heard after the sentencing, you heard that guy up there with Rourke say he met with the Watts and all they wanted were the facts that the defense knew. They did have the facts. However, they don't actually know the facts because they are not allowed to speak with Chris. Since the November 6th hearing, the family has called the public defender's office numerous times, and they have been rerouted each time to a social worker. It is the opinion of Mr. Watt's family that he has been coerced, has been denied his constitutional rights, and more, all in an attempt to quickly close this case. They want to have a new attorney speak to Chris on their behalf to determine if this is a true confession or one that is based on inhumane treatment at the hands of the public defender's office of Weld County. If they had not been denied access to Chris, then they would not be forced to contact you for equal justice for their son. Today, Mrs. Watts has left 2 voicemails with your office, which is closed for the holiday. She would like to speak with you about this matter and to find out why their family is being denied access to Chris and make sure he is receiving fair treatment under our Constitution. Her number is blank. She will accept your call at any time and is aware that I've reached out to you. Thank you for your time. So there was a motion filed after this letter was written on Cindy Watt's behalf. And all of that is true. That is stated in that letter. And now here's the order regarding that. On November 12th, the court received an email from blank on behalf of the defendant's mother. Among other things, the email requested that the undersigned officer communicate with Mrs. Watts. The court is prohibited from having any ex parte communications with any third party or make any statements about this case outside of the courtroom. Therefore, the request is respectfully denied. From Cop Cow. Same day. Denied. But, yeah. That's your Chris Watts dose of the day as we close in on the 4-year anniversary coming up here on Saturday. And I want to come over to chat. Chuck Marie says, my first ever YouTube member purchase. I have been so obsessed with Jay's coverage of this case the past week. I couldn't resist supporting her and you all. Chuck Marie, thank you so much. That means so much to me. Thank you everyone for your support. Thank you Ultra Dark, Jerry, May, welcome. Sleuth and Sandals, Socks and Sandals, Jerry, and anybody else that I missed. Thank you moderators for being here tonight. All your Roberters are the best chat. I love members only chats.
Gotta be handy with the steel, if you know what I mean. Earn your keep.
Mr. Positive. Moderators. Mount up. Let's see. Do I have another thing for you or are we through?
If you'll please point that microphone right at your chin.
I think we're through for tonight, folks. I think. Don't leave yet. Let me check one more thing and then we are going to dance it out. But I had a few funnies set aside. I did this last time too. Such a loser. Oh, did you guys see my video with Anne Heich, The actress, you guys go watch my short. This lady, she was speeding down the road. She barreled into a house. Her car caught fire. The one that used to, go out with Ellen. Her car caught fire. They brought her out on a stretcher. She was covered, her whole face, and she like popped up, and no one expected it. Craziest thing. And I've got the aerial view. So go check out that video. We're going to skip the funnies and go right to dancing. So I don't give a damn. I know y'all don't give a damn. Have a safe night. Have fun. All of those good things. Tomorrow night at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, those the visit, the Watts family tapes, we're going to be going over those tomorrow. That is the first visit that the Watts family had with their son since this happened. So dance this motherfucker out.
Roberta.
I don't give a damn. I don't really care about you and your problems. I don't give a damn. You talk way too much. I have heard enough about you and your problems. I don't give a damn. 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 You wanna be with me. You wanna feel something real, but I'm feeling differently. You're making plans to get to France, but don't wanna face the fact that I ain't got time, I ain't got time for that. Staying up late, sleeping all day, dreaming about Cadillacs. Buying new shoes, hanging by the pool, sipping on Coke and Jack. Calling my phone when you feel alone, but I'll never call you back. 'Cause I ain't got time, I ain't got time. I don't give a damn. I don't really care about you and your problems. I don't give a damn. You talk way too much. I have heard enough about you and your problems. I don't give a damn. 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 You wanna be with me. You wanna feel something real, but I'm feeling differently. You're making plans to get to France, but don't wanna face the fact that I ain't got time.